A cradle for young STEM talent, the science fair's rise and fall over the years mirrors that of American academic culture. To truly understand how science is interwoven into the American story, we must travel all the way back to the 19th century. It's no coincidence that science and engineering fairs emerged in the US in the late 20th century, evolving into a powerful movement that swept across the nation and later the globe. The seeds were sown for this development at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. The very first science fair was technically an industrial exhibition held by the American Institute of the City of New York in 1828. Nearly 20,000 visitors came to see investors showcase advancements in agriculture and manufacturing. Throughout the 19th century, the general public flocked to these fairs to have the first peek at innovations such as the Morse telegraph, Bell telephone, and Remington typewriter. By the turn of the 20th century, however, public enthusiasm for science exhibitions began to fizzle out. Perhaps people had finally seen enough oversized telescopes. In response, the American Institute reinvented itself, shifting the focus of fairs towards children's studies in nature and agriculture. Meanwhile, the American Museum of Natural History encouraged young minds to get up close and personal with the natural world, and major toy manufacturers like the A.C. Gilbert Company flooded homes with scientific toys, ensuring that many a living room became a makeshift chemistry lab. With these forces at play, the stage for the modern science fair was set. In 1928, the American Institute opened its first children's fair to a crowd of approximately 35,000 spectators. However, the fair came to an end in 1941 due to financial difficulties faced by the American Institute. As the American Institute stepped back from its starring role in championing science education, other organizations eagerly grabbed the baton. Take the Science Service. Founded in 1921 by newspaper magnate E.W. Scripps and UC professor William Ritter, its initial goal was to bridge the gap between esoteric scientists and the average citizen. The Science Service launched news and radio programs covering major scientific breakthroughs, including the life-saving discovery of penicillin, the slightly more explosive creation of the atomic bomb, and the space race, which was basically the Olympics, but with rockets. Not content with just talking about science, the organization actively engaged the public, sent science kits to children, and even facilitated the first meeting between amateur scientist Rudi Mandl and Albert Einstein. The two hit it off so well that Einstein later published a paper on gravitational lensing based on Mandl's work. World War II didn't just reshape nations, it supercharged science. With the realization that brainpower was just as critical as firepower, America set its sights on cultivating the next generation of STEM wizards. The hope that a kid building a baking soda volcano today might be designing rockets tomorrow. Believing that science fairs could serve as talent scouts for future Einsteins and Teslas, the Science Service teamed up with Westinghouse Electric to launch the Science Talent Search, STS, in 1942, and doubled down with the establishment of the National Science Fair, NSF, in 1950. Maya Ajmera, the president and CEO of Society for Science, formerly the Science Service, explains the motivations behind launching the very first Science Talent Search.
And the reason we were founded to do science competitions was about national security. Our directors were very concerned about who's going to protect our country. We need scientific and engineering talent to do that. So they founded Science Talent Search. And that became Westinghouse Science Talent Search, and then Intel, and now Regeneron.
The launch of STS signaled the shift from educating citizenry to adopting a meritocratic approach. Original children's fairs leaned heavily on nature exploration and informative exhibits. A top project showcased a diorama on the life cycle of a dogwood tree. Since the inception of STS, science fairs were no longer just about knowing science. They were about doing science, complete with hypotheses, experiments, and enough data charts to make your head spin. With analytical skills as the top criterion, STS and NSF set out to find the best and brightest. And it worked. The proof? 4 STS finalists from the competition's first decade, Ben Mottelson, Leon Cooper, Sheldon Glashow, and Walter Gilbert, went on to snag Nobel Prizes. not bad for a bunch of kids who probably started with baking soda volcanoes. Following the success of STS, the number of science fair clubs multiplied after World War II. In 1941, there were about 700 clubs. By 1949, that number had skyrocketed to 13,000. Because nothing says join a science club like a Cold War arms race and the looming threat of Soviet superiority. Then came 1957, aka the year America collectively panicked. The Soviet launch of Sputnik sent the nation into overdrive, determined to churn out young scientists faster than you could say orbital trajectory. Government agencies jumped in, offering programmatic support and financial incentives to science fair participants, and the numbers reflected the frenzy. In 1957, about 250,000 students participated in science fairs. By 1962, that number had quadrupled to a staggering 1 million.
Wow!
One shining example of America's commitment to scientific excellence, the long-standing tradition of US presidents personally meeting STS finalists. Because nothing boasts your research credibility like a handshake from the leader of the free world. From Truman to Obama, nearly every president has honored these young scientists, proving that while political parties may disagree on almost everything, everyone can get behind really smart kids doing really cool science. In 1958, NSF moved from the national to the international. It soon evolved into the International Science and Engineering Fair, or ISEF, that we know today. Now, ISEF draws over 175,000 high school students from across the US and 80 other regions around the world. As the popularity of fairs grew, the Science Service expanded its program to middle schoolers. In 1999, it collaborated with Discovery Communications to launch the Discovery Young Scientist Challenge, which later became Broadcom Masters and is now known today as the Thermo Fisher Junior Innovators Challenge. From middle school to high school, every chemistry-loving, rocket-building, slightly sleep-deprived teenager now has a chance to shine. The Science Service, the powerhouse behind the largest national science competitions for middle and high schoolers, rebranded as Society for Science and the Public in 2008, and later just Society for Science in 2020. Maya Ajmera, the president and CEO of Society for Science, has a bold vision.
I would say is making sure every young person in this country can become a scientist or engineer if that's what they want to be when they grow up. So we have a series of outreach programs, from mentorship to teacher professional training to how to build a research program to science news learning in classrooms, and our STEM action grants to nonprofit organizations and STEM research grants to teachers.